Initializing.
Welcome to Infinite Guides. I'm Zacubus and this is the guidebook into Infinite Crisis, and today's lesson is talking about the surveillance cameras and what do they do and what are the differences between all the different surveillance cameras, and also talk about where to place the cameras in particular as well. So there are 4 different kinds of cameras in Infinite Crisis at the moment. There will be probably more added on later, but first off we've got the bog standard. So these cameras grant vision in an area for 180 seconds, that's 3 minutes. You can only place 2 surveillance cameras on the battlefield at any one time, which I'll go into a little bit more detail about in a second. Charges are refilled automatically upon returning to the base. So once you're in the healing fountain, or the foundry as it's called in Infinite Crisis, you will regain your charges back on your cameras. Now once you've placed a stolen power surveillance camera down, it will be stealthed from the enemy. They can only reveal it by using X-ray vision stolen power or using the green arrow surveillance camera, which reveals stealth for a couple of seconds. Now the rest of the surveillance camera all have unique different features to them, but they still follow those 4 basic rules that I covered already. So Gaslight Batman's camera actually gives an increased sight range, so you can actually see more of the map on the minimap, which is always a good thing. Especially in wide areas of the map, which, say, the bog standard surveillance camera couldn't necessarily cover all the details. Now Robin's surveillance cameras gives you 2 additional charges, so instead of carrying 3 cameras from the start, you're carrying 5. Now you can still only place 2 cameras on the battlefield at once, but it's great for a champion that has great sustain and can stay alive for long periods of time, because then you don't have to back to get new cameras to keep up your vision. You can stay in the lane and feel safe the entire time. Now Green Arrow's camera is incredibly popular right now because it reveals stealth for a couple of seconds. So it's great for counter cammering. So if your enemy puts their camera down, you put your camera on top and then eliminate their vision afterwards, because you'll be able to see it. This will give you a little bit more map control and it will put them on their toes a little bit. They won't know when the ganks are coming. But also with this camera is that it actually detects enemy champions as well. So if you know an incoming attack from Nightmare Batman or Gaslight Catwoman is coming in particular, you can find them and kill them before they do any damage to you. It's important to note that the stolen power surveillance cameras, you can only place 2 on the battlefield at any one time. If you place your 3rd one down, as you'll see right now, my first surveillance camera that you can see in the stealth pad will disappear. Now you can place a 3rd surveillance camera if you remember to pick up the power-up surveillance camera at the back of the base, but remember this one is just a bog standard. It doesn't have any special features like the Green Arrow or the Gaslight Batman camera, but still incredibly useful to have that extra vision, and you can see all 3 cameras lit up there. Now another quick tip when placing cameras is to put them in the meteorite craters that are throughout the map if there's a good position to do so, like in the top left here, which I've highlighted. So this camera becomes more difficult to eliminate if the enemy team tried to counter camera it or eliminate that camera. They just can't get the angle quite on it the same, and sometimes it just looks pretty much invisible, like you don't even notice a camera there sometimes if they do counter camera it. So it's a nice little tip. So I'm going to talk through some early game placements on the cameras, but first off, if you're a completely new player to Infinite Crisis or MOBAs and you have some form of cameras or wards or something that gives you vision, and basically you don't know where to put it, just put them anywhere to begin with, because just learning those mistakes will help you actually learn the game a lot quicker as well for yourself. So if you're unsure on a position, just try it out. There's no harm in it. It's always better to place a camera down rather than just hold it and never use it. So just might as well just spam them out. You get them for free anyway, so find out the best positions for yourselves as well. Just sort of have your own learning curve about you. But first off, let's talk about what I do at the bottom. So we come down the bottom of the lane, and then once we reach sort of the mid area, this bit here, we want to sort of place up some defensive cameras, so we're not going to get any nasty surprises coming at us. So a good place one is here. This defensively holds off your jungle from the enemy coming in and invading it and being really greedy and like just going, yum, we're going to steal your jungle. So it kind of stops that from happening, which is good. Also, another camera I like to place that stops incoming ganks is right in the middle here. Now, usually you would put a camera in the stealth pads here and here, but if you only put it in one of the pads, vision on this side is lacking, so the enemy can come down on this stealth pad and then come in for a gank, and it's kind of nasty. But if you put it just in the middle here, you kind of see them incoming just before they hit the stealth pads. You've got to have a quick eye about you, but I find it's a really good location. So 2 starting points I put here and here. Now if I've picked up the camera from spawn, that means I have 4 cameras usually, so I've still got 2 spare left. Now my other 2, what happens is that I will use them later on in the lane, but it all depends on how the lane is going. So if we've managed to do quite well and we've pushed up to the enemy territory, we're farming on this half of the map now, I will actually start to move my cameras. So I might place one in this stealth pad here, and I then might place one here as well. This is to see if the jungler is coming to gank or not, see if he's going to try and invade us again through these ways. It just gives us a heads up. And you know, if you're in this half by the first 3 minutes, you've probably still got this camera up here and this camera here, but obviously you're going to replace them the more cameras you put out, so just bear that in mind. So some other camera placements are, if you're still pushed up in the lane, what is a good camera placement is if the enemy are attacking you from their stealth pad, it's good to actually just put a camera down there just to eliminate that from happening. As soon as you put one down there against a good team, they will back off and they will not even probably try and harass you. But some players will then just stay in those stealth pads too long and take far too much damage, or you might even get a kill. But tend to have then 2 cameras, one here on the tri-stealth pad and just one here in this location. So 2 here. So they're good spots as well. Now, if the enemy have pushed us up, what is a good placement for the cameras is one at the EMP camp here. So we have vision on it if they try and go for it, so we can just leap on them if necessary, if we want to take that risk. Also a defensive camera in here, so if the enemy are harassing us from our camp, it can be slightly annoying. That's the worst arrow I've ever drawn. Let's try that again. So if the enemy's attacking us from our stealth pad, we put a camera in there and eliminate that from happening, so they're not going to come in there so much, and we'll see them in that. And also in our tri-bush as well, or tri-stealth pad. So there's some other ideas for the camera placements in the bottom lane, but now let's talk about the mid lane. So when we're down in the mid lane in the early game, we want to set up some cameras. So where do we place them in the mid area? Now obviously there are lots of different places to attack from, so if you're the enemy jungler, you're going to come out of here, going to come down from here maybe, or maybe this way, come through the stealth pad, come through this area on your half, also come in from the bottom up here. It's also another location, or coming through the little slit here as well. So there are a few different options when it comes to ganking the mid lane, so you've got to camera it up properly as you would expect. So a good camera defensively at the start, when you're in your half of the map, you want to place one here where there's meteorite is. Remember I showed you that before. If you place a camera in a meteorite, you just can't kill it if somebody tries to scout it out. I like to put another camera down here, so anything from the bottom coming up, if the lane at the bottom wants to push up, or the enemy jungler is going to push up from this way, like I said, it's going to be covered. Also the enemy can come up through this way, so it's very reliant that you had that camera there or some camera here to sort of stop that from happening. So the bottom half of the map has to, you know, sort of team up and make sure that you cover everything up across the map. So good cameras here to begin with. I think they're 2 of the best, because usually you're battling around here in the middle, so usually you have enough time to get back. But if you start pushing up a little bit more, getting more into enemy territory, you can move the camera to their side and maybe even put it into the stealth pad here. These could be useful, and always just sort of, if you can, keep the bottom covered up as well if you can get all 3 cameras. But you will eventually run out of cameras and you'll have to back as well at base, but make sure to pick up some more if you can. Now, as for the top lane here for cameras, we don't really have to talk about it again because it's identical to the bottom lane pretty much. They're very similar. It's a very symmetrical map, so the same cameras apply. So at the beginning you'd put one here and put one here, that kind of thing. Same thing applies really. So yeah, but all the cameras at the beginning, it would look something like this maybe. So that would pretty much cover that entire half of the map. And you'd see something crossing over or invading, providing that everybody set up their cameras correctly. So this is just part 1 of the beginner's guide into cameras. So I'm going to do part 2 later on in the series, just explaining the transition from the early game to the mid to the late game of where to place your cameras, and also placing it in objectives, and also advanced techniques like teleporting to cameras and setting up ganks that way. Okay, thanks for watching guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, dislike if there's anything that you didn't like or something I've forgotten to mention. It's always good when I get good critical feedback as well. It helps me learn. It's all about the learning process for all. So thanks a lot guys. Take it easy.